Our next item is P7, the Technology Deputy Director's Report, CROS Project Update and Actions.
Welcome, Ms. Fleming. Please introduce yourself for the record.
Thank you very much. Good morning. Good morning, honorable members, Madam Chair, honorable members. I'm Brenda Fleming, the Chief Information Officer and Deputy for the Technology Services Department. I appreciate the opportunity, as usual, to be before you to present. I wish I had more exciting news for you today, but it's going to be a pretty status quo. We've completed, however, the evaluations of the offers from the bidders. We've talked about before that we had a couple of bidders that were providing proposals to us to solution our CROS proposal. We've completed the scoring of those evaluations, and we've got some rankings of those. That activity still occurs under Public Contract Code 6611, and so we're working through the process of that negotiation to clarify and sort of streamline and refine some of the information that we've received. Just as a footnote, what happens in that process is that we have the RFP, and they provide a response, and in that response sometimes there are gaps between the two, and we do, again, as I think I shared before, want to reconcile those gaps to make sure that we have a good, solid, clean approach and understanding before we get into the process of inking the contract. We want to make sure that everything that they propose to us is manageable, it's realistic, and it optimizes us for success. There's no other key issues or concerns at this time of this reporting period. Within the next 90-day time frame, however, between now and September, your office, if you've not already been contacted, your offices will be contacted so we can schedule you for the videos. We would love to have you participate in creating videos to message to the staff board-wide and then specifically for your individual districts. We'll follow up with the legislature, as we've talked about before, to continue to shake hands with them, to keep them informed, to give them the opportunity to have progress reports, etc. We'll also begin to provide the status report summary of what we provide here. We can begin to send those to them in written form. We'll assess our resource needs, which is ongoing. As you know, we continue to get significant legislation, so it's going to be important for us to make sure that we look at the balance of the workload to make sure that we've got the best and the brightest available to work on the project. Some of the field office and headquarters staff are reviewing the catalog of business rules, and that really is kind of the devil in the detail level of really how business is done. All of that information is documented, and it's available on our EBO internal website. And so we're asking some of the field office and HQ staff who have subject matter expertise to review those for quality, for completeness, and for accuracy. Those are going to be very important to us when we sit down with the bidders to make sure that they're clear on how we do business, but still gives room for them to offer some process improvements. The normal workload for the project continues. We'll continue to clean data, review our processes, get documentation in place, etc. And as you know, one of the other requirements was that the legislature asked us to be very specific in our collaborations with Department of Finance and with Department of Technology. And so we're making sure that we're having regular ongoing meetings to keep them informed, to show evidence that we are actively participating and maintaining that partnership. The budget information has been available to you. Current month to date, which we have the budget report for May up until this point, and we're at about 95% for current month. Overall, year to date, we're a little bit over budget at about 108%, but overall, from project to date, we're still on track at 95.3%, and we're waiting to get the final numbers for our 16-17 budget, consistent with what Mr. Holtz just provided. That concludes this month's report. Please let me know if you have any questions.
I do have a question. Is this new CROS project, will it give taxpayers the ability to pay on a more frequent basis than like the prepayment? You know, if they wanted to pay daily, they wanted to pay their sales tax in weekly, the 3-month kind of window is too long for taxpayers to hold their money given this electronic age.
Yes, exactly. As a matter of technologically, yes, Madam Chair, the system itself will allow us to do and drive our processes any way that you want. What we'll do with that technology is to come to us and decide through policy, you know, under what conditions you want it to be configured. So we could say, here are some that if you want it to be done daily or weekly, monthly, quarterly, you know, biannually, etc. That'll be in what we refer to as the configuration rules. And a lot of that will be embedded in the policy, and those kinds of things will present to management and to the board to ensure that we're configuring it in a way that's consistent with your direction.
Ms. Harkey?
Yes, I have one question. The business rules that are supposed to be reviewed by various departments, are those like assigned out, or are people just supposed to look at will, or do you have certain?
There are designated individuals
Okay,
that
good.
are our program area readiness team, under the direction of Val Williams, has kind of identified those individuals and in shaking hands with them. It's on the website, so others can view them if they're interested, but there are specific, experts that we'd like to make sure.
I just want to be sure somebody's assigned to actually do it.
Owners,
Okay.
absolutely. I
I'm
agree with
good.
you on that, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you for that question. Thank you. That concludes my report. Any other questions?
Madam Chair, I just wanted to suggest that we may want to have concurrent conversations about payments being prior to the statutory payments. Start those, and so that in the event that there is a need for legislation to allow the taxpayers to pay on a more basis, start that process in order to accommodate those the board would deem desirous to do that.
Okay. We'll figure out a process and start the discussion. I understand.
Absolutely.
But the system's not going to be up and running and with the ability to take these payments for how long?
Well, that's the million-dollar question. At this point, as I mentioned, Madam Chair, we're still in the negotiation phase. And I just recently, as of this past week, have been spending time in the details on exactly how long, what's the timeline for that negotiation. The timeline that we're working from now looks like about an August timeframe before we are in the contracting phase. And that's a tentative date. I'm being very careful because there's always give and take during that process. If that's the intent, our hope still is that the vendor would be on site in the fourth quarter of this year, somewhere between October and the December timeframe. I'm careful there because depending on, even though they're ranked, we still are working with both. And so we're very, very careful to recognize that those two vendors have two different approaches. And those approaches have some distinctions and some different timelines and implementation strategies. And so I'm cautious with that because to the extent that I share a little bit more of that, it's a little bit of a peek into some of the proprietary portions of that. I'd be happy to talk to you about that offline, but we're very careful to protect that at this point. And I apologize. I wish I could convey more.
Okay, so it seems
But
like
it
we have
would
a
not
little...
be, it's probably in terms of the functionality, we hope to see some of that functionality perhaps in the 2017 timeframe as a general ballpark timeframe, but probably nothing in this calendar year.
Okay, so in the meantime, we will gather some data in terms of how much revenues we generate from who, and maybe start trying to figure out some trends in terms of who should perhaps pay or have the ability to pay more, on a more timely basis versus quarterly.
One of the things we'll do for you also is we'll schedule the staff to come back and really walk you through the revenue streams process. There's some significant intelligence and algorithms that have established that, and we'd really like you to walk you through that so you could see there are 10 revenue streams identified, so we want to walk you through those so you can see how the revenue streams are going to work, how the vendor gets compensated for it, any revenue and benefits that they produce out of that, and then a lot of the other data that's available to us. That's really the intelligence that, that's the foundation of that. So we'd like to walk you through that. That way you can, and then also share to the extent that we can, kind of the two approaches that are being offered, and then you can get a greater peek into, okay, so this is how this might work, and then we could look a little bit more of the time frame. I will share, however, that the compensation model is set up in such a way that the vendors are carrying the cost of the project for quite a while. So the vendors will be very motivated to try to get to some revenue as quickly as possible. But we have a lot of rules and criteria that's established that ensures that the state gets what they want, but it's also going to be fair to the vendor community. But that strategy has a lot to do with when the functionality comes on board, what approach they will implement the functionality, and where those payments and the revenue starts to be realized.
So at what point would you like to share with us this?
I'll get on your
When she
calendars this
can.
month. The information is ready. I'll get on your calendar, and we'll walk you through that.
Okay,
And we'll
well,
do that probably at this point. I'm not sure. I'd like to talk with you guys individually first. I'm not sure if we're ready to put that on a public agenda at this point.
Okay.
But we can sit down, because it's pretty complicated. I mean, it's easy to see in diagrammatically, but it's something that we actually need to walk you through, and then you can give us direction on. We can even make it available perhaps on our website.
but at some point, once we choose the vendor, perhaps you can come back and do a public presentation just
Absolutely,
for the public.
absolutely.
Okay,
Our goal, absolutely consistent with your direction, is transparency.
okay, good.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you,
Thank you.
Ms. Fleming, for your presentation. Ms. Richmond, next item.